Dear students, welcome for the lecture series on tourism. Today we are going to discuss about an interesting topic of tourism, that is Introduction to Tourism Industry. The topic can be studied under the following subheadings. They are Evolution of Tourism Industry, History of Tourism in India, Overview of Tourism Industry and Present Scenario of Indian tourism. Let us start with the evolution of tourism industry. It was only after 1980s that tourism activity gained momentum in India. The government took several significant steps to achieve this end. A national policy on tourism was announced in 1982. Later in 1988, the National Committee on Tourism formulated a comprehensive plan for achieving a sustainable growth in tourism. In 1992, a National Action Plan was prepared, and in 1996, the National Strategy for Promotion of Tourism was drafted. In 2014, a draft new tourism policy in tune with the economic policies for the government and the trends in tourism development was published for public debate. The draft policy is now under revision. The proposed policy recognizes the roles of central and state governments, public sector undertakings and the private sector in the development of tourism. Panchayat Raj institutions, local bodies, non-governmental organizations and the local youths have been involved in the development process. The other significant development that took place was the setting up of the Indian Tourism Development Corporation in 1966 to promote India as a tourist destination, and the Tourism Finance Corporation of India in 1982 to finance tourism projects. Thrust areas. In order to speed up the development of tourism in the country, several thrust areas have been identified for the accomplishment during the 12th five-year plan. The areas where there has been conspicuous development are infrastructure, winter sports, wildlife and beach resorts, and streamlining of facilitation procedures at airports, human resource development and facilitating private sector participation in the growth of infrastructure. Boosting tourism. Some of the recent initiatives taken by the government to boost tourism include grant of export house status to the tourism sector and incentives for promoting private investment in the form of income tax exemptions, interest subsidy and reduced import duty. The hotel and tourism related industry has been declared a high priority industry for foreign investment, which entails automatic approval of direct investment up to 51% of foreign equity and allowing 100% non-resident Indian investment, and simplifying rules regarding the grant of approval to travel agents, tour operators and tourist transport operators. In a nutshell, Indian tourism has huge untapped potential for generating employment and ensuring a steady flow of foreign exchange, besides giving a much needed boost to the country's overall economic and social development. There have been significant improvements in the spheres of increasing air seat capacity, trains and railway connectivity to important tourist destinations, four-laning of roads connecting important tourist centers. Coming to history of tourism. Wealthy people have always travelled to distant parts of the world to see great buildings, works of art, learn new languages, experience new cultures and to taste different cuisines. Long ago, at the time of Roman Republic, places such as bays were popular coastal resorts for the rich. In the 1936, the League of Nations defined foreign tourist as someone travelling abroad for at least 24 hours. Its successor, the United Nations, amended this definition in 1945 by including a maximum stay of 6 months. History of tourism can also be accessed through the following. First one, leisure travels. Leisure travel was associated with the Industrial Revolution in the United Kingdom, the first European country to promote leisure time to the increasing industrial population and production. Initially, this applied to the owners of the machinery of production, the factory owners and the traders. These comprised the new middle class. Cox and Kings was the first official travel company to be formed in 1758. Many leisure-oriented tourists travel to the tropics both in summer and winter. Places often visited are Cuba, the Dominican Republic, Thailand, North Queensland in Australia and Florida in the United States. Winter tourism. Major ski resorts are located in the various European and North American countries like Austria, France, Germany, Iceland, Norway, Poland, Sweden, Switzerland, Canada, the United States and so on. Mass tourism. Mass tourism could only have developed with the improvements in technology, allowing the transport of large numbers of people in a short space of time to places of leisure interest, so that greater number of people could begin to enjoy the benefits of leisure time. Beginnings of tourism. The 4 stages are: first one, prehistory tourism. The first stage of 4 stages covers the long period of what might be called prehistory tourism. The medieval times and into the early 17th century, when the first signs of industrial growth began to affect the way of life which had been established over the centuries. Gradual increase in wealth, the extension of the merchant and professional classes, the effects of the Reformation and the secularization of education stimulated the interest in other countries and the acceptance of travel itself as an educational force. Second one is transport. The railway age represented the second stage when steam trains and steamships transformed travel opportunities. Rapid growth of population and wealth created an enormous new market in a short period of time. Mass travel was invented, and with its resort development and the introduction of the travel trade of agents and tour operators with new marketing methods such as organized tours, travel packages and posters and brochures. These remain as key marketing tools of today. Third one is interwar period. The third stage, almost an interregnum, is represented by the interwar period between 1918 and 1939. The full flowering of the age of railways and steam was halted abruptly by the First World War in 1914. As has happened before since, the war gave great impetus to some forms of technical development very helpful in the longer term, notably the expansion of road transport and considerable investment in aviation. However, it was above all the age of the motor car. New fashions were introduced in what might be called social tourism through the extension of holidays with pay, an extension in a variety of recreational and specialist leisure activities, camping and caravanning, the spread of youth hostels, cheap transport and tours by motor coach. Once again, expansion and experimentation was hindered by the Great Depression of 1930 and finally brought to a halt by the Second World War in 1939 to 45. Fourth one is tourism takeoff. The period from 1945 through the post-war years up to the present time represents the fourth or takeoff stage. It has been an era of revolution in technology, massive industrial development and change which resulted in related acceleration in wealth creation and escalation of disposable incomes. Far-reaching changes in individual lifestyle and in personal and group communication have proved to be new factors in molding society. Furthermore, the speed and scale of change has greatly increased. Determinants of demand have never been more favorable for spending on travel and leisure. A continuous increase in GDP of 3% or more per annum in the prosperous years for Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development countries stimulated travel growth of 6% or more each year. Tourism has proved to be highly income elastic. After a certain income threshold, when all necessities in life have been met, discretionary income in the richer countries tends to be spent on what were formerly regarded as luxuries and services. In these countries, travel spending has increased at almost double or even more than the rate of or growth in national income or GDP. A variety of important factors contributed to the development of tourism during the 19th and early part of the 20th century. There are 5 major reasons for the growth of tourism. These are as follows: a rise in industrial output associated with the Industrial Revolution that in turn led to an increase in the standard of living. Improvements in transport technology which led to cheaper and more accessible travel. The introduction of annual holidays towards the end of the 19th century. Changing perceptions of the environment locations that were once viewed as hostile were now seen as attractive. An increasing desire to travel. This was related partly to improvements in education and also to great overseas travel, which was mainly the result of war. Next, moving on to history of tourism in India. Tourism in the early period. The history of tourism developed mainly through indirect sources in the early period. In India, in the early days of agricultural abundance, export of cash crops created an important trade link. Manufacture of iron ore into steel for weaponry was another important item of trade by the later Vedic period. Tools and textiles were other renowned Indian products. Contemporary Greek and Hebrew scholars have noted the wonder of India and her fab-led wealth. Owing to the predominance of trade routes over the land crossing between Asia and Europe, trade tours were an important development in this period. In the early days, pilgrimage or pilgrim travel assumed great importance. Ashoka the Great travelled a great deal in his eagerness to spread the doctrine of Buddha. Throughout his travel from Pataliputra to Lumbini to Kapilavastu to Sarnath and finally to Gaya, Emperor Ashoka had special memorials set up at each spot and also rest houses where travellers could rest. Trees were planted along the roadside so that the traveller would be protected from the harsh sunshine. Harsha was another great emperor who, gently influenced by the Buddhist scriptures, built institutions and Dharamsalas for travelers. Rest houses were built in towns and villages. A number of monasteries were also built for the pilgrims. This shows that travel facilities were much improved and travel was not a cumbersome experience. Tourism in the modern period. The rail network in India placed the needs for recreation within the reach of an increasingly large number of people who had leisure time and the means to enjoy it. Air India came into existence with the enactment of Air Corporation Act on 1st August 1963, when the entire air transport industry in India was nationalized. At the time of nationalization, Air India operated 4 weekly flights to India to UK route and 3 flights on India-Nairobi route. Today, it has extended network of air route linking all the 5 continents of the globe. Air India organizes special programs to give a wide publicity for projecting India. Soon, Indian Airlines began with a view to establishing an air transport network to link the remote places in India. Today, Indian Airlines has expanded its wings to nearby countries as well. They have introduced many schemes and offers like the Discover India package, Leave Travel concession encouraged domestic tourism. Concessions for the youth and students also promoted travel within the country. In the early 1960s, the Indian Tourism Development Corporation was started to provide Western comforts to international visitors. The IIDC played a major role as a catalyst in developing a modern superstructure for international tourists. The government set up infrastructure to promote tourism by establishing tourism promotion offices in abroad. The tourism cell in the Ministry of Aviation was upgraded into a department. The private sector was invited to establish luxury facilities for the high-spending tourists. The first pioneer in this field was Mohan Singh Oberoi, who began his career in the hotel business with the Clark's Hotel in Shimla and the Grand Hotel in Calcutta. Moving on to overview of tourism industry. Tourism industry in India is on a great boom and it has tremendous potential to become a major global tourist destination. Travel and tourism industry is the second highest foreign exchange earner for India, and the government has given travel and tourism organizations export house status. Tourism is travel for recreational, leisure or business purposes. Tourism has become a popular global leisure activity. In 2014, there were over 1,022 million international tourist arrivals with a growth of 3.9% as compared to 2012. International tourism receipts grew to $1,044 billion in 2014, corresponding to an increase in real terms of 4.8%. The resilience in the Indian tourism industry can be attributed to several factors. The tremendous growth of Indian economy has resulted in more disposable income in the hands of middle classes, thereby promoting increasingly large number of people to spend money on vacations abroad or at home. India is a booming IT hub and more people are coming to India on business trips. Aggressive advertising campaign Incredible India by Ministry of Tourism has played a major role in changing the image of India from that of the land of snake charmers to a hot and happening place and has sparked renewed interest among foreign travelers. Tourism is one of the main foreign exchange earners and contributes to the economy indirectly through its linkages with other sectors like horticulture, agriculture, poultry, handicrafts, and directly through its linkage with other sectors or the economy. According to an estimate, total direct employment in the tourism sector is around 90 million. In the year 2014, the Government of India announced a new tourism policy to give boost to the tourism sector. The policy is built around 7 mantras like Swagat means welcome, Suchna means information, Suvidha means facilitation, Suraksha means security, Sahyog means cooperation, Sanchalana means infrastructure, and Safai means cleanliness. The government has taken several other measures for the promotion of tourism. A multi-pronged approach has been adopted, which includes new mechanism for speedy implementation of tourism projects, development of integrated tourism circuits and rural destinations, special capacity building in the unorganized hospitality sector, and new marketing strategy. 4 groups of participants are influenced by tourism. They are tourists, business providing goods and services that the tourist market demands, the governments, and the host community. Moving on to present scenario of Indian tourism. India is a fascinating country. Its unmatched and varied scenic beauty, its vast geographical and climatic range, its rich historical and cultural heritage all transcends an easy description. It possesses a spectacular heritage of art, crafts, the variety of handicrafts and handlooms, and the richness of culture are also amazing. The Kanchipuram and Mysore silks, Phulkari of Punjab are just a few cases in point. What about those dance forms of India? India is proud of Kuchipudi of Andhra, Bharatanatyam of Tamil Nadu, Mohiniyattam and Kathakali of Kerala. India has everything to attract visitors. Still, India's share in tourist traffic at global level indicates a depressing scenario. That a country with more than 22% of world population, 7th place in the world geographical area and increasingly affluent in tourism facets should not contribute only a bare of 0.67% towards world tourism and hardly 0.81% in terms of travel receipts should be a matter of concern for all. In India, tourism has a different implication altogether. There has been a world of difference between the Western concept of tourism and that of India. The concept of moving away from home or leisure or sightseeing or visiting places has not imbibed its roots deeply in the social setup of average Indian families. Mainly, there are 2 sets of compulsions or obligations which have been capable of inducing an average family to take to travelling, and these are set social obligations and set of religious obligations. On the other hand, the limitations of Indian people, though slowly and gradually fading away, have been unaffordability, lack of information and inappropriate infrastructure. However, tourism today is not the prerogative of a few. That is, it is no more a class activity but has become a mass phenomenon because of enhanced affluence, more available leisure time and increased desire to seek pleasure. Apart from this, another significant feature worth mentioning is that in developed countries, tourism started at the grassroots levels, and the national tourist organizations emerged through a process of integration. While in India, as in most developing countries, due to the involvement of the public sector, it filtered to local levels from above. Barriers to India's tourism industry. There are 5 major barriers that India's tourism industry must overcome if it is to improve its ranking in the world's tourism league tables and importantly enjoy the benefits that tourism may bring. The 5 barriers are as follows. A consequence of civil aviation policy is that fares are high and schedules can be erratic. Visa processing may slow and lengthy, leading almost inevitably to significant delays that can be a deterrent to tourist demand. Although much is being done to address it, destination marketing is poor when compared to other major tourist destinations. The infrastructure for tourism, particularly the rail networks, are the great deal of improvement. India was seen to be slow in responding to and managing both crises that impact upon tourism and opportunities that may arise for tourism. Coming to conclusion, a national policy on tourism was announced in 1982. Later in 1988, the National Committee on Tourism formulated a comprehensive plan for achieving a sustainable growth in tourism. In 1992, a National Action Plan was prepared, and in 1996, the National Strategy for Promotion of Tourism was drafted. The word tourism was used in 1811 and tourist by 1840. In 1936, the League of Nations defined foreign tourist as someone travelling abroad for at least 24 hours. Its successor, the United Nations, amended this definition in 1945 by including a maximum stay of 6 months. Tourism industry in India is on a great boom at the moment. India has tremendous potential to become a major global tourist destination, and Indian tourism industry is exploiting this potential to the hilt. Travel and tourism industry is the second highest foreign exchange earner for India, and the government has given travel and tourism organizations export house status. India has everything to attract visitors. Still, India's share in tourist traffic at global level indicates a depressing scenario. That a country with more than 22% of the world population, 7th place in world geographical area, and increasingly affluent in tourism facets should not contribute only a bare of 0.67% towards world tourism and hardly 0.81% in terms of travel receipts should be a matter of concern for all. Thank you.